Hi, and welcome back. And I have with me my bud Sal, and it's great to see you, Sal. I wanted to kind of check back with some of my friends after the new year. And does the new year bring you good tidings?
Oh, absolutely. David, thank you so much for having me on. For the longest coming into the year, I was very much pessimistic on the markets. And it so happened that the last, 3, 4 months of the year made my entire 2018. So
Hmm.
I was pretty much a loser for most of 2018. And everything kind of changed around for me. My family had a great Christmas because of that. So right now I'm in this, situation where in 2019, I'm still trying to kind of figure out where the market is going. So right now, besides, you know, the penny plays that I'm doing here and there, for the most part, I just been looking for overbought equities and shorting them on high RSI levels. But besides that, man, I'm still not a believer in the overall trend of the market right now, or that whole call for a return to higher highs as pre-correction. But we'll see what happens. But yeah, man, so far a great year.
Yeah, I kind of thought that that was your deal because I saw you signaling like, oh yeah, we got to get short here, and then the thing went straight down. And I was like, oh,
Yeah.
this guy, you were like killing it, like
Oh,
right,
absolutely. I mean,
yeah.
again, but it took 11, damn near 10, 11 months to get to that point.
Mm,
So
yeah.
it was very, very frustrating because, sometimes you would see something crack and all of a sudden it would bounce for 3, 4 days straight. I mean, you can look at like Nvidia or Square or some of these other, QQQ type plays where the market just wasn't acting correctly. I mean, sure, many of them were delivering above average earnings reports, but at the same time, I mean, it was clearly showing signals that things were getting tired, right? But at the same time, the technicals weren't reacting to those signals. So it was very, very frustrating, but I held strong and it didn't start really working until the end of the year.
Yeah, let me just pull up Square for a second, just because that's an interesting one, and I've always thought about it and been like, wow, this is going to crack at some point because it had such an amazing run, and I actually have one buddy who is like long it all the way up, which is
Mhm.
it just bugs me as well. But I'm just pulling up the chart of it now, and yeah, it seemed destined to crack at some point, and it really did crack. I see the high at $100. It got down to like 50, but it still has maintained like lofty valuations. It seems to
It's
me.
absolutely insane, David, and there's so many stocks like this. And again, since coming from penny stocks, my specialty is these, companies that trade with these huge PE ratios or are losing money and don't have a PE, but they have these incredibly, like you said, lofty overvaluations. And I specialize in these kind of things because I understand that, once we correct, and when we do, they're coming down hard.
Mm.
So it is frustrating to see a company like Square that wouldn't even exist, right? Wouldn't even exist if our markets were really efficient, right? If companies really had to prove themselves by showing real earnings or showing real products, services, being able to borrow money at what would be more reasonable rates, right? So it's difficult right now. Again, we're in a very low interest rate environment where companies can borrow at practically zero. So it keeps companies like Square being able to continue to do business and borrow and borrow and borrow and borrow and borrow. And they still keep trading at these incredibly high valuations, and nobody cares. I mean, nobody cares about the fact that this company has what, a $20 billion, $30 billion valuation, right? And hasn't generated $1 billion in profit for the year. So, in any year since it's crazy. I mean, it's absolutely insane, David. Absolutely insane.
Yeah, I think just for people that maybe not familiar with Square, I believe that their main product base now for one dynamic with them is I believe the Jack Dorsey sort of dynamic, but which is the CEO of Twitter is involved, and so he's been taking a limbo back and forth between these two companies, like
Mhm.
trying to manage both of them, and that was to people thought they thought that would be a difficult thing to do. But I believe it started out as an app where you you were able to take your cell phone and process a credit card transaction on your cell phone, and that was like the basic Square. And it went from that to, like you said, a zillion-dollar company, and it just exploded. It's one of those examples of like the stock market being a popularity contest. Forget the numbers; something's popular and it just explodes.
Yeah, I mean, it's really unfortunate because the only people that lose in these kind of situations, David, are traders who think that these are, are gullible people, people who think that, this is a valuable company and they're really doing something when you've got their biggest competitor in the space, PayPal, which, has significantly more operations, working with significantly more capital, doesn't borrow as much debt or doesn't have as much debt as Square, and doesn't suffer from the cult of personality, right? I mean, Square is all about, the fact that they have the same CEO as the guy who runs Twitter. And I think it's actually preposterous that, we have a guy who's running two publicly traded companies. And people think that like that's okay. That's not okay. Like anyone else would say, look, how do you manage two publicly traded companies with huge valuations and be able to do them both at the same time? It's absolutely ridiculous, David.
Yeah.
And the fact that, again, we're in a twilight zone here where we're just, we're not really digesting information properly. I don't think we're of sound mind. I don't think that we're in an age now, David, that people are really, they don't even really care if what we're doing is right or wrong. And I think, we are going to suffer from that, particularly our children, our children's children. But right now, it's just almost sad to see some of the companies that are being traded now on the exchange that, again, in a real economy, even though if we were to go back in time, even 20, 30 years, these companies wouldn't exist. These companies would not exist right now.
Yeah, I mean, and we did get that big sell-off, but now we're just back. And I was actually talking about this a few minutes ago. It seems like we're in a situation where we could go sideways for like a very extended period of time. There's not really any real big feeling for a direction for this market. I wanted to ask you, I miss the show. And I know it's unsustainable coming on and doing 8 hours a day or something.
Yeah.
But could we have you like one day a week doing it or something?
And you know what, man, it's so crazy. I've fallen in love recently with commodities, and not necessarily trading commodities, but just trying to understand how gold stocks and how to trade gold on paper, right, with equities. And of course, I developed my 25-10 moving average strategy, which I've been using and applying. But everybody's absolutely right. I've got to get back to the show, and it's just so crazy because when you just start doing things, you forget, right, about the fact that I have this thing going on out there. So I do want to get back to having that show, doing it at least once a week. And that's absolutely, I think the fans would really appreciate that. And I need that too. I do need that too. It's just sometimes, jumping back on and getting on, it's a little hard to do after you've been doing it for so long. But I do want to get back to having that show once a week. Absolutely.
Yeah, I hear you. I don't know how some of those guys guys that are on Twitch, the gamers. I guess that guy Ninja. I mean, he makes millions of dollars, but he's on there like 15 hours a day. And how do you sustain that? And he's just playing one video game. And I know, like I said, that he's profitable and stuff, but I don't know how people sustain it. I think the key is to find something that suits your personality that's also a business model, and it's hard to figure out, it seems sometimes.
It is because, for gaming, it's a little bit easier, right? I mean, they sell the game for $40, $50. You're paid to either promote the game or to show yourself playing the game, and you get sponsorships. Well, in finance, it's not the same, right? Because I mean, it's a little bit harder for people to get into the game, right? Because they got to get a brokerage account. They got to want to, invest money, right? Suitable amount of money. They also have to understand that trading is about scale. So the more money you have, the more opportunities you have to make money when it comes to trading. So the model yet hasn't fallen down to our level yet, uh, but it will eventually. It will eventually. So we're still, I think, very early in terms of that. Being live streamers and then trying to kind of find it as a day-to-day thing. That's why so many guys have to sell a package. They've got to sell training things. Like me, I sell black box. I mean, so there's so many things that you've got to kind of involve yourself in just to be able to make it profitable. Otherwise, you're going to be in a situation where you're just giving yourself a lot of time, but you're not making any money. And that's where you don't want to be. And I was there for a while where you're putting in so much time and although you may have a few views there and there, YouTube pays you by having a shitload of people, right? So it's slanted towards you having to be like really ridiculous or just really just acting like a fool. And I didn't really want to be that. I still wanted to give real good quality information without necessarily making myself look like an idiot. So that's where you just get in having to go out and partner with people who are going to support you.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely tough out there. I mean, I think the average YouTube viewer is like 13 years old and is into like, watching Minecraft. And so our like potential pool of people is a lot smaller. And,
A lot smaller, absolutely.
and we have some certainly very loyal people in that pool, but it's not a model that works. The monetization model for YouTube, I don't think works so well with us. So talk a little bit more about your delving into gold and strategies to do with that. I know it's a very tough thing to trade gold. I've gone through periods of trading it in the past, and it was more of like trading the leveraged minor ETFs, like way back when.
Right, that's basically all you can do, Dave. I mean, it's really just GLD, I think IAU, a couple of leverage like JNUG and JDust and things like that. Those are really the only things to trade. And right now, they've had an incredible 2.5, 3 weeks, and it's a nice, slow, steady move upward. And it's great because you don't have to worry about going in and out or anything like that. There are a couple OTC plays as well, a couple also low end, miners on the NASDAQ that are relatively very cheap and inexpensive right now. MUX is one of them. CDI is another one. CDI, I think, is going to have an incredible 2019 year. Let me see. I think it's CD. Actually, I think it's CDE. Excuse me. CDE is that ticker. That's going to have an incredible year. So that's basically where I'm at right now. I mean, the other plays are not. They're just not moving the way they should. I mean, we've had now the last 3 years a market that's just really not responding to even technical analysis. I mean, you could even speak for volatility. Volatility isn't even trading like volatility. I mean, it's just absolutely insane, the kind of things that we have going on. But again, people have come to accept it when we shouldn't. We shouldn't really accept it. So I'm waiting, Dave, for the day we wake up and then we're going to be up $50 on gold. We're going to have a market that's down, 700, 900 points. That day is coming. Will it be this year? I don't know. But that's why I'm parking my money right now in commodities, palladium, silver, even copper. I'm parking my money there because we're both young enough that this is going to happen in our lifetime. I mean, you can see we're already, again, trading. We already have companies that are trading and borrowing money at some of the lowest interest rates of all time. And even a slight 0.25 basis point adjustment sent some of these stocks down 25 to 30%. So if we are going to get that on a 0.25 adjustment, imagine what happens when even with 0%, even with another QE, they stop going up, Dave. That means we're going to have a catastrophic decline in prices, and we're going to have an incredible increase in the price of commodities. So right now, yes, they're a little slow. Yes, you're not going to wake up to 10% gains on gold, but one day you will. One day you will, and that's the one I'm living for right now.
I mean, in a sense, I like to sometimes think about gold as being gold never actually changes its value. It's just the dollar that moves around. So gold's always the same price, but dollar becomes less valuable. Every time they print more dollars, the dollar becomes less valuable and it costs more
Absolutely.
dollars to buy an ounce of gold. They say like 100 years ago, an ounce of gold could either buy a crappy horse or a
Mhm.
decent suit. And today, an ounce of gold can still buy a crappy horse or a decent suit, and it never changes. It's just the world around it that changes, it's interesting to think about it that way sometimes with gold.
Absolutely. I mean, again, we're living in a debt-based society. In the last 20 years, we've manipulated our financial system to where again, we're we've got over, nearly $2 trillion of unfunded liabilities when we talk about the United States government. We've got a generation that's getting older that's going to need that money. We've got a generation behind them that doesn't have the kind of income to keep it sustainable. And when I say that, I'm talking about our Social Security system. So we're headed for day zero, Dave. We're headed for a major correction in the markets, and that's why I'm putting my money right now in gold. I'm very short biased with the markets. I think so many people are just way too short-sighted in terms of like, yeah, we're going back to all-time highs, Dow 25,000, and we could very well get there. But I don't want my money at risk on the upside going overnight. I mean, every Friday, I worry about what could happen on Monday. I worry about whether or not the international market is going to be able to sustain itself because right now it's cratering. I don't know, David, if you've seen what's going on in Italy right now. Italy just had to sell another $13 billion worth of debt.
Hmm.
We've gotten, I mean, so many countries, Italy, I mean, it's all over Europe where they've gone to had to sell more and more debt in order to keep their economies afloat. So it's a really scary time, and people are just they're not aware, and I think people are just too short-sighted, man. They're just too short-sighted, and I just wanted to be one of those traders who thinks about the long term in a very smart way. And again, I've moved my trading to now weekly and monthly setups, and it's worked out a lot better for me because now when I get a signal, I know it's a high, it's a high, say it's a high accurate signal, right? And it's I can believe it.
Yeah, I mean, I know it's been tough there were a bunch of people that were short this market and made a bunch of money in December, and it seems like a lot of people were taken by surprise by this rip back up again. And I think they've said a lot of smart money is still on the sidelines now to seeing what's going to happen, and it's very hard to get a sense of it. Now, do you think that without alienating half my audience here,
Mhm.
do you think the U.S. political situation is a major driver of the markets right now, or are the markets somewhat detached from what's going on politically? Because it seems like there's a certain section of the U.S. population that's very ultra focused on politics, but the rest of the
Mhm.
population it could care less.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. I mean, we've got a fake Republican in the House right now, a guy who says he's all about balancing the budget or anything, but just announced he wants to spend another $120 billion towards the military industrial complex. 120 something billion that we don't have. So of course, I mean, pumping that kind of money into these publicly traded defense stocks pumping up again it's just really sad and everybody's buying it in terms of the business media is buying it, many traders are buying it because so many traders are long, our neighbors are long, our institutions, many places where we work, they're long, we're invested in these 401ks, they're long. So everybody's long, everybody just wants to go up, and people don't understand. I mean, Dave, you see it, we get one day red, people are panicking. You know what I mean? Because they know it's not for real. They know what we're doing is not legit. They know it. We're going to get back to days where we have these boom and bust, and a big bust is coming, and I'm going to be prepared for it because everybody is on the long end. I want to be the guy who's in the back of the room who gets to say, I told you so when it all comes falling apart. And I honestly do believe that either within the next 24 months, 18 to 24 months, we're going to have a major, major correction that sends the SPX below 2,000. I'm going to be ready for it. In fact, I think we'll crush way below 2,000. We could be looking at 16 to 1,500. But I want to be prepared when that happens.
Yeah, I mean, it's no longer, we're sophisticated enough where it's no longer everybody just puts all their money in a mutual fund and thinks that we're going to go up 10% per year. That's not the world we live in anymore. And, I'm with you in that my long-term stuff is in cash right now, because I made a little pop on the, I bought the bottom a little bit on this, but then there's no reason for me to put it at risk right here. You know what I mean?
Not at all.
I don't have a feeling for it.
Absolutely. And David, that's the smart place to be, either again in commodities or in cash, because during a recession, you got $10,000 laying around. Hell, even if it's 1,000, that 1,000 is like 10,000 when it's a recession and no one else can get money, right? And if you're sitting on cash, that's a really smart place to be. So, it is what it is, man. People are going to buy the all-time highs. I'm seeing the tweets again, and that's where people are. That's where the headspace is, and you can sell a lot of student packages when the markets are hot. Again, we're over the 10 moving average here on SPX on the weekly, and people are loving it. So I'm still waiting down there, waiting for 2,600 if it gets retested again. I'm definitely going to be there. So we'll see what happens, Dave.
All right. Well, there you have it from Sal. So you definitely have an opinion on things, and we'll have to see what happens moving forward. It's always great to hear from you. I hope, as far as I'm concerned, the more we see you online, the better, because I love watching your shows. I love having you out there. I know it's tough to do all the time, but I would love to see like a format of like, you showing up somewhat regularly, because I just like listening to your analysis. It's like you're one of those people that like it's part of the puzzle for me. Hearing your take on stuff is part of the puzzle that completes me as a trader. So great to hear from you. Congrats on all the success at the end of last year. The bad thing about being a trader is that you got to come out with a new idea to make new money all the time. It's like, you don't get to be like, okay, no, I'm promoted to senior vice president number 14, and your salary goes up. You got to come up with new ideas.
Right. And I mean, it's basically a reset for us, right? I mean, especially for someone like me who's a short bias trader. Now we're climbing back up to those levels, and I'm going to keep ranting and again. And I know I'm going to have my bone again when this all comes falling back apart. So again, if I've got to wait the whole year, and then for us to get to October or November or whatever it is that it happens, then I'll be right there. And Dave, we'll be there to talk about it as well.
Awesome. Well, great to talk to you, Sal, and let's stay in touch, and we'll touch base soon. Great to hear from you once again, and thanks for coming on the show.
Will do. Thank you so much, Dave. Appreciate you, man.
All right, buddy. Talk to you soon.
All right.